Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, General Barr. I've been listening carefully to my Republican colleagues on the other side, and it appears that they are going to work together and coordinate the so-called locker-up defense. This is really not supposed to be about the Mueller investigation, the Russian involvement in the election, the Trump campaign, and so forth. It is really about Hillary Clinton's emails. Finally, we get down to the bottom line. Hillary Clinton's emails, questions have to be asked about Benghazi along the way. What about Travelgate, Whitewater? There's a lot of material we should be going through today according to their response to this. That is totally unresponsive to the reality of what the American people want to know. They paid a lot of money, $25 million for this report. I respect Mr. Mueller and believe he came up with a sound report, though I don't agree with all of it. But I find, General Barr, that some of the things that you've engaged in really leave me wondering what you believe your role as Attorney General is when it comes to something like this. Listen to what, since it's put in the record, let me read it. Listen to what you received in a letter on March 27th from Bob Mueller. The summary letter the department sent to Congress and released to public late in the afternoon, March 24th, did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of the office's work and conclusions. We communicated that concern to the department on the morning of March 25th. There is now public confusion about critical aspects of the results of our investigation. This threatens to undermine a central purpose for which the department appointed the special counsel, to assure full public confidence in the outcome of the investigations. I cannot imagine that you received that letter on March 24th and could not answer Congressman Crist directly when he asked you whether there were concerns about representations being made on these findings by the people working for Bob Mueller. You said, no, I don't know, after you received this letter. What am I missing?
Well, as I explained to Senator Leahy, I talked directly to Bob, and Bob told me that he did not have objections to the accuracy.
Attorneys don't put things in writing unless they're pretty serious about them. There's an old rule in politics: a good politician doesn't write a letter and doesn't throw one away.
Okay.
So I've got to ask you, if he puts it in writing of his concerns or your representations on March 24th, you couldn't recall that when Congressman Crist asked you that question a few days later?
No, I'm saying that this was the March 24th letter stated that Bob Mueller did not reach a conclusion on obstruction. And it had the language in there about not exonerating the president. My view of events was that there was a lot of criticism of the special counsel for the ensuing few days. And on Thursday, I got this letter. And when I talked to the special counsel about the letter, my understanding was his concern was not the accuracy of the statement of the findings in my letter, but that he wanted more out there to provide additional context to explain his reasoning on why he didn't reach a decision on obstruction.
I'll just say this, Mr. Barr. If you received a letter from Bob Mueller a few days after your March 24th letter, it was clear he had some genuine concerns about what you had said and done to that point. Can we move to another topic?
Yeah, his concerns was he wanted more out. And I would analogize it to this. After a months-long trial, if I wanted to go out and get out to the public what the verdict was, pending preparation of the full transcript, and I'm out there saying, here's the verdict, and the prosecutor comes up and taps me on the shoulder and says, well, the verdict doesn't really fully capture all my work. How about that great, cross-examination I did? Or how about that third day of trial where I did that? This doesn't capture everything. My answer to that is I'm not trying to capture everything. I'm just trying to state the verdict.
No, you just absolutely used the word summarize, though, in your letter.
Summarize the principal conclusions.
Principal conclusions, which most people would view as a summary. But let me move to another topic, if I can, for a minute. The Office of Legal Counsel's decision as to whether or not you can prosecute a sitting president, you had some pretty strong feelings of that, and they were reflected in your volunteered memo to the Trump defense team, your 19-page memo.
Did I discuss that?
You certainly discussed whether or not a president should cooperate with an investigation. You said at one point in summarizing the findings of Mueller that the White House fully cooperated. We know for a fact, and you've stated already, the president never submitted himself to what was characterized as a vital interview. an actual sit-down interview under oath, not once, and that his questions that were answered some 30 times, his memory failed him. So to say the White House fully cooperated that, I think, is a generous conclusion. On this Office of Legal Counsel, I would refer you to this volume 2 of the Mueller report, and on page 1, he talks about the whole issue of whether or not he was in any way restricted and what he could conclude because of the outstanding Office of Legal Counsel opinion on the liability of a sitting president. You dismissed that in your opening statement and said we asked him 2 or 3 times. He said that had nothing to do with it. Well, how do you explain on the first page of Volume 2 that he says it had a lot to do with it? It's a reason he couldn't reach a binary conclusion on obstruction of justice.
Well, no, it was a prudential reason. One of the backdrop factors that he cited as influencing his prudential judgment that he should not reach a decision, which is different than citing the OLC, saying that but for the OLC opinion, I would indict.
I'm just going to stand by what he has written, and I ask others to read it as well. The last point I want to make is about Don McGahn. If you read the section here, pages 113 to 120, on Don McGahn's experience, the president wanted him to state publicly that the New York Times article was untrue, that he had not asked McGahn to fire the special counsel. McGahn refused, and there's some speculation as to whether he risked being dismissed or even resigning over this issue. And for you to suggest that this was some sort of a kabuki dance with Rob Rosenstein, I think the president's intent here was very clear. He wanted this to end. He told Lester Holt, going back to the issue that was raised by the chairman earlier here, the reason to get rid of Comey is because of the Russian investigation. I mean, over and over again, this president was very explicit, and it certainly is very expository in his style. So I don't understand. Let me ask you this. In conclusion, my time is up. Do you have any objections? Can you think of an objection of why Don McGahn shouldn't come and testify before this committee about his experience?
Yes, I mean, I think that he's a close advisor to the president.
Never,
and the president
never exerted executive privilege.
Excuse me?
He may have already waived his.
No, we haven't waived executive privilege.
Well, at this point, do you believe, you're saying Don, what about Bob Mueller? Should he be allowed to testify before this?
I've already said publicly, I have no objection to him.
And Don McGahn, should he be allowed to testify?
Well, that's a call for the president to make.
Well, he's a private citizen at this point, as I understand.
Well, I assume he'd be testifying about privileged matters.
Well, I would hope that we could get to the bottom of this with actual testimony of witnesses after we've taken another close look to Hillary Clinton's emails. Thank you.